So, and I'm going to share the screen with you. Just a second. So share screens. Can you confirm that you can see it?
Yes, I can
Yeah,
see it.
cool. And this little thing here is a tool called Epic Pen. So if I want to point something on the screen, like a jump arc or an interaction, whatever, I can do it, and you can see it, and it's also on the recording. So you wanted a little bit of help with identifying ranges, critical ranges, and sort of like optimizing defense. This is a concept for all fighting games, but in KOF it's a little bit different, but mainly because of one thing. If you're playing other games with less movement options, this is usually your sort of active range and risk range, because most other games have one type of jump, right? Maybe two, so that one. So once you're outside of the range, aside from playing, I don't know, Dulcim or some other limb zoner, they can enter this range. You don't have any risk there, right? So you don't really have to worry about what you're doing and how. We just have to worry about your opponent approaching, closing that range, and then threatening you, right? In KOF, this is not true, because if in KOF I set, for example, my opponent to throw a fireball full screen, which is something that wouldn't be punished in other situation, because you need, I don't know, a super or an ultra that goes through, or any other option from any other game. That wouldn't really happen in KOF. That is the thing. So you don't really have uh, what I call dead ranges, right? So you always have ranges that can be threatening, depending on the character you're fighting, the range that they're holding, and the behavior that they're displaying. So in this situation, for example, in another game, wait, let me put it on comment. In another game, that would be safe, right? But if I am like doing this, I can easily convert full screen from reading a fireball. That is not guaranteed, but you get the idea. Like, you can lose 70% off of that, right? So due to how the jumps work and the ranges they can close, you don't really have a lot of safe ranges like in other games. So that is why it's important to understand how you can minimize the risks here, because it's a game of taking decisions. A lot of the time it's a game about taking decisions and taking them based on what the opponent has shown you. Now, I don't know if you're familiar kind of general with the basics of KOF, but basically, like, you have lows that beat high, and some mids depending on which low you have, and you have your lows that can be upped and punished. Generally you have anti-airs like in other games, so you'd have your classic DP, but usually this is used against jumps and super jumps because they are reactable and they take a lot of time to travel to you. They can be used against ups and hyper ups, but this is more of a educated guessing than pure sheer reactions. So that is your like KOF 101 for the neutral, but that is kind of if you're playing a quote unquote Street Fighter or other regular games where this is the only jump or these two are the only jumps. KOF doesn't really work like that, because if you try and anti-air a hop, it can be really difficult to anti-air with DP on reaction, especially because some of the very invincible DPs are slow, because they are meant to anti-air something that takes some time to get there, and some of the fast DPs don't really have invincibility, so they can be beaten out of the air because they are there to really anticipate things, like as a read, as a basically guessing read. So you will be in a situation where some of the buttons cannot be beaten on reaction only, and you would have to challenge them in the air. I will try and demonstrate that pretty quickly with Yori's jumping C and jumping B. Those are really good buttons that, wait, I have to change the this system is a bit not the greatest in this training mode, but we can make it work. So if I was to record a jump, right? It's an up or a hyper up, right? And you don't know when it's coming. It gets really difficult to challenge that on reaction. So you want to take another approach, which is something that you don't really do a lot in other fighting games, or you do it at very high level. Air to airs in other fighting games are something that you kind of get to out of logic, but most of the time you're anti-airing. So if I want to anti-air him, by the time I react, it's gonna be really hard and really like late, because I am trying to react. See how even the dummy just blocked, and then I will eat a full punish. So it's not an approach that is like really suggested. You can do things like, you know, tripping under things, so that is kind of doable. And you know, even like with the slide, if you have a slide that you can extend the range where you can do it at, right? Instead of, you know, being here, you can punish with a slide there. But that is like a little bit character specific and doesn't work against all buttons, all characters, and all heights. So what happens is that instead of doing that, you have to take the decision and go forward, because if you don't, you're not going to be able to anticipate it. And this is a read, it's not a reaction. You can do it on reaction at very high level against some characters, but most likely it's a read, because you see, I'm trying to react, it's not working. So you have to do things like that. Now, what is good in KOF, that if you do things like this, right, and you anticipate the opponent, most of the time you are at the range where you're not risking anything. So in other games, this and on top of this, right, this high part is a really big danger zone. In KOF, this is not really true, unless like specifically they're using, you know, 2 bars here for a DP into super, right? But that's like quite specific. Most of the time, this is where neutral is played. So it's pretty different from say Street Fighter, where your neutral is fully grounded. You are in a position where you basically want to be here to anticipate the opponent, and then once you anticipate them here, you can you know, go low, go depending if they're crouching, you can sort of go cross up as well. So like, you know, you're anticipated there, you can go empty low depending on the character and the cross up they have, right? You can fully convert from there. Or if you have a common grab, you can go anti into common grab. I don't have like a proper common grab, I have a hopping common grab, but you get the idea, right? So this situation, this going in and jumping to anticipate, is something that a lot of people need to get used to, because they think they're playing other games. And in other games, if you try and anticipate somebody with a jump like this, they will react here or here, right? And then by the time you're there, they're already punishing you. So they're just waiting for you to get there to punish you. And that is the main difference in KOF. This is not your danger zone. The ground is your danger zone, because once you are anticipated in the air, and then you have to, you know, read the mix up there, or wait to like defend against a cross up or a fake cross up. You know, you are in a position where you're like, okay, this is front, this is back. So you are in a position where this is what you have to worry about, right? Not in the air. The air, yes, is the exchange that leads to that, which is like, it has been kind of made common with Street Fighter 5, at least at, you know, the very first few seasons, where people will go in the air and then have a very strong 50-50. That's kind of true in KOF as well. There are ways around it, there are movement options, there are ways to deal with that, but mostly this is not your danger zone. So that I need to stress out. I'm going to clear the screen, and we're gonna go into the other concept of this. So in KOF, you are in a situation where your critical ranges and the way you can dish out damage is fairly different than say once again Street Fighter or whatever other game you might be used to, because here in Street Fighter, this is not really a thing, right? This might be like a command overhead for somebody, but it's not really a thing. So this is a big danger zone, right? The first one. Look how close it is compared to other games. Here. Right? So that's your big first. What's that?
Oh, I'm sorry. Never. I'm saying how far is the danger zone? Would
Yeah,
it be
well,
that
the
gap right
fact
there?
is that the danger zones are literally everywhere in the game. And that's why it's different from any other game, because this to this, it can still be a danger zone if I am reading. If I read, right, there, that you're going to throw a fireball, all I need to do is run forward a little bit and then super jump, and I will punish you. So there are no technically what's it called, safe zones if your opponent is reading. The fact is there are, however, two very different approaches based on range how you defend and attack in KOF. Because if you're jumping from here into a super jump, the sort of like name of the game is anti-airing. Just like Street Fighter, just like other games, you can just anti-air with DP, or whatever. It's like you can crouch things, so you can do like sweep or crouching bees. These are all possibilities, right? Depending on where your opponent will press a button. If they press a button up here, then you can just then you can use both, because you can anti-air and you can sweep or crouching B, because the button will be active here but will be dead and inactive by there. And if you're crouching, you can just extend your button and punish from there. Now if they instead press the button here, most likely you will not be able to sweep and crouching B, because the button will start being active there and will cover this arc, right? So you are in a situation where you have to recognize this difference when the button is pressed. So it's also about a reactionary game based on jump arcs, because you can have the same exact jump arc, right? A super jump as we detailed here, but the button being pressed here will have a different function than the button being pressed there. So this button pressed up here will most likely anticipate a jump from you in this direction, right? And meet you there before you're able to press the button and the button is out. So there is this to be understood in KOF. Now, at the same time, you have mainly 4 ranges based on these jumps when you're defending as well. So as I was saying, super jump, and I'm gonna group them by color. Super jump and normal jump on a defensive range, right? Or say maybe pretty much here. They're both DPable, they're both reactable. You're playing like the normal fighting games that you play, all the other fighting games. The problem is when you have to face the arcs that are short up and hyper up, because these two arcs are not really easily reactable like a super jump or a full jump is, right? It's very, as we were seeing before when I recorded for Yori. So that's your hyper up, and that's your short up, right? So they cover 2 different ranges, but they're both really hard to react because they're fast, they extend quickly, and so on. So to minimize the risks in defense, you have to understand the intention of the opponent in neutral all the time in KOF. This is why the game is like very, very heavily on neutral. It might not be heavy on footsies, as in grounded neutral based on, whiff punishing of extended hurt boxes and things. It's there, but it's not sort of the main part of the game. The main part of the game is reading what your opponent wants to do. Because, as we were saying before, you might not be able to anti-air here with DP at that range, but you might be able to fake the fact that you're going in. They think, oh, it's gonna jump in to anticipate me early in the air, right? So I'm gonna jump before them and press the button high. But at that point, you can walk back and just strip them and just, sweep them and so on. So when you're playing a game of KOF, a lot of these interactions stuck because it's a game based on movement and spaces. So once your opponent, right, goes back full screen, like, I don't know, 3-4 times in a row and throws a fireball from there, you know that you can start, running back and forth. There is no risk for you here if you run and stop, right? But the moment that you think they're gonna throw a fireball, you can full jump and punish. And at the same time, this is gonna count for you as well. Because if you're a character that throws fireball, you don't want to do that. You don't want to go full screen 3 times in a row and throw a fireball because your opponent will be super jumpy. But with this information, you can fake the fight that you're going to go full screen and throw a fireball, right? Then wait, they will super jump, right? Because they have learned that you're going to do that. And you can just anti-air them here, right? Because you're going to have all that arc to react with. So that depending on what your anti-air is, Chris's anti-air aren't the greatest, but in general, right? And if they're jumping to punish your fireball as well, with this scenario, they will press the button here, right? Because they want to guarantee the combo. They need to be like pressing here to then have the frame advantage to confirm the combo and so on. It means that all of this arc until here is empty. There's nothing there. So one other thing that you can do, instead of waiting for anti-airing them, you can also anticipate them here, and then they're back into the corner with you playing a mix-up on them because they have to recover. So it's like, I'm gonna go low, I'm gonna go high, I'm gonna go command grab, I'm gonna go, I don't know, frame trap, right, and so on. So how do you minimize the risks when playing this kind of game? It's really about memorizing things. So what I do and what a lot of players will do is, how many times has my opponent reset maybe from mid-screen to full screen and thrown a fireball? Is it something that they're doing all the time? Once you punish them, right? Will they do it again? Even don't take the guaranteed punish to see their behavior, because if they do this and they fake the fireball and you jump in, then you are gonna get punished because they're waiting to anti-air you. And this way of playing the game is really what KOF is about. If you I wouldn't say double guess because that sounds negative, but if you are careful of your engagements and careful of your opponent's habits, this is really how you avoid being stuck into mix-ups or disadvantageous situation because you lost the interaction in neutral. So it depends on the character and what their buttons are, and that is stuff that you can learn by just playing by experience. And you will see, for example, that even even by intuition, this button is much more fast than this button, which is still not out, right? Now it's out. So you would be like, okay, this is for anticipation, this is for applying frame advantage, right? So all of these brought together will help you minimize the risks. For example, the DP, right? They'd be like, oh, if I DP and they block, I'm gonna eat a big punish. Ultimately, it's also based on these interactions. How many times, if I've lost the situation where they, stuck with pressing me and so on, or preventing me from running, or anticipating me in the air, they're doing things, right? So they're educating you for their habits of how active they are in offense. So that will tell you, oh, it's not that risky to go for a DP because this person is just doing stuff. But if you see that, they'll hit you here, you block, and then they're like, I'm just gonna poke, I'm just gonna be safe, that means, oh, maybe they're trying to bait the DP, and so on. So minimizing the risk is really just trying to understand the opponent. And I know it's hard, especially when you're starting, but try and think when you're learning especially that you should focus way more on this process, and maybe even when you watch back your matches, be like, oh, was I reading here? Was I waiting? Was I understanding how many times that they've done this thing at that range and so on, and you know, identify this pattern? Because that ultimately is what's gonna make you a really good player. A lot of the time, you're gonna find in KOF tools that are really hard to challenge until you think outside the box and be like, oh, okay. For example, if we go and look at King, she has an incredible jump CD. Incredible, right? And once she does this stuff, right, you will see that going into the air is really, really hard. But you can slide it at some ranges. At some timings, if I do this, you will not be able to slide because that's a late button, right? But if the button is late, that means that all of this, all of this arc is empty, right? See how that arc is empty. Then you can DP it. So it's really about trying to understand this. People say RPS. I think it's a little bit more deep than that. Try and understand these dynamic scenarios to then apply your approach. So if you have questions now, I can just take it from here, if that makes sense.
What?
If you have questions, I can take them from here, as in I can answer your questions and demonstrate things from now, because you know the part where I explain things is kind of over.
Let's see. When do I best I'm trying to think of what to say. What's the best time to use a jump or a hop? Use each jump or hop.
Yeah. So a jump would almost not happen in KOF because it's something that you probably would go like over a fireball, right? A very slow fireball. But even then, the fireballs are fairly fast in KOF. So the time you're in the air, right, to land a jump would rather be used to have either this, which reaches far, so you can start the jump from much further, where it doesn't look threatening if they're not looking for it, or you can just do a hyper up, which see, it's a very different range. This is like hyper up range, and this is super jump range, right? Both of them will go over the fireball, but when to use it is really what you want to establish in the game. Do you want to play defensive and reactive based on, you know, the habits of them resetting to full screen and throwing fireballs? Then by all means, go back and play at this range. Maybe throw your own fireballs if you have them. And once you think they're going to fireball, boom, you can punish from there, right? But if you want to harass your opponent and trying to establish your offensive game and pushing them to the corner, then by all means, this is also a great range to contest fireballs. Because you can also react, read the slash react, let's say educated guess, on jumping over fireballs and punishing them, right? So it really depends on what you want to do. At the same time, if you're here, right, and you're playing this kind of game, you're saying to the opponent, I want to be offensive, which can also be used as a bait, because they will have to jump forward, you go back and DP them. So it's really a sort of a game of sending messages and laying traps and, you know, educating your opponents and maybe baiting them into something. So there is no clean cut and dry answer. Of course, I will tell you, do not super jump here, right? Because this is like, okay, they have all the time in the world to to react to that and punish you. Most likely you would be super jumping from here. Or I will tell you, do not hyper up here, because they will anti-air you there, right? Or you're gonna jump into a fireball, depending on the range. So mostly this is the range where you enforce offense in KOF, right? Up, hyper up, low, I don't know what her version is, I think it's like that. And this is the more like reactive range, but these can all be used as a bait to then make your opponent think, oh, they're just going back because they're waiting for the fireball. I can clear this range by running, and maybe you can just do that, right? It's risky, but it's doable. Or a slide to then convert. right? I think that's the bypass. So, was that clear?
Yes.
Okay. Other questions?
How do I apply offense with a character like Kyo?
Kyo. Okay, sure. So, for Kyo, I don't really play him myself, but Kyo is really about these buttons in the air are really, really good, right? Especially this one. It's not as good as other games, but you can see like how hard it can be to react to that stuff. But also, yes, you know, a DP to anti-air people, yes, this thing which is annoying, especially at like lower mid-level, because it's active all the way through. So you can like air-to-air people here, but also air-to-ground people there. So that is a good option. Rekkas are like fine if you just, you know, stop at the first one and then confirm from there. But mostly you want to throw just the first Rekka. They are armored at some point, like some parts that are like guard points between them, before the first one. And offense is really like, this is I think is empty low. I want to say I'm not sure of the conversion for this character in particular, but yeah, stuff like that really. So from the low, high, right, and so on. Or I don't know if that combos. I think you can do crouch B, crouch C, or crouch B, stand C. Yeah, stand C. And I'm not sure of the follow-ups because I don't really play the characters. But yeah, it's really a mix of dominating the air and the mid space and reacting to DP for people that jump on you. He has a overhead that is like a good opener. I think you get Rekkas, and then you get like this as a confirm. In general, like jump CD, really good. This also like is a decent option if you think they're going to jump, because you would just like set them into a juggle for a combo into the corner. Crouch D is alright. Down forward D is a really good option to go into max mode, but that it depends on your level, because as we were talking about before with short ops, I'm going to record. Sorry, wrong one. So let's just say that she does this, which is really good in the air, right? If you're Kyo and you're waiting for that, especially from a little bit far away, because you have the range with the down forward D, which moves forward, and also like low profiles. Oh, come on, stand here. Yeah, so you can just react when she does it, right? Stuff like that. I think you have to be a little bit closer with him. I know it can be done, or you can just sweep it, right? And then you have your low, your high, well, it doesn't really have common grabs, but you can have like Rekka pressure or launcher in the corner and so on. So that's really how you play defense. You dominate the air quite a bit with these buttons. Jump D is really good. Jump CD really good. As I was saying, the Rekkas, you can wait for DP, right? You can also like do that, but that is like at way further ranges, and it's kind of hard to use, right? So yeah. Anything else?
Not that I know of right now.
Okay, cool. And you're free to like book other sessions absolutely for free. I love doing this. I'm just building the portfolios I was explaining before. And also if you have VODs, that is really helpful, because once you got this concept, then applying it is another story. so we can look into that together. And from there, I can tell you, oh, you've been, really listening to this part, but maybe you forgot about this part, or all of your options, but you cannot bring them together under stress, and we can look at strategies to improve that. Okay.
Also, you're gonna be posting this on YouTube, right? I'd
Yeah.
like to take a look at this again.
Yeah, for sure.
And see
It's always
the
there.
entire rant.
Yeah, it's always there. And feel free to message me like on Discord if you have questions and so on. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Cool, no problem. And thanks to you.